Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. His ship moved slowly through space, escorting 3 large refugee ships filled with families running from the war. Been going on for 43 years now, and it showed no signs of stopping. "Captain, we're getting another distress call," said Lisa Park from her position at the navigation controls. She was young but skilled, and Jake trusted her completely. "It's from Sector 7. Looks like another refugee convoy needs help." Nodded. This was their job now. Earth had decided long ago to stay out of the war between the Zephyrian Empire and the Kethfer hegemony. Instead, they helped anyone who needed it. Refugees, medical ships, supply convoys, they all found safety in human space. "Set course for Sector 7, Jake ordered. "Tony, how are our engines?" Tony Rivera looked up from his engineering station. He was a big man with steady hands and a calm voice. "Running smooth, Captain? You can make full speed whenever you're ready." The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Amy Foster sat at the communications station, monitoring dozens of radio channels. She kept track of distress, calls, refugee requests, and diplomatic messages. Her job was never boring. Jake had been doing this for 15 years. He remembered when the war started, when both alien sides tried to get Earth to join them. The Zephyrians promised trade deals and protection. The Kethfer offered technology and military alliance. Earth's government said no to both. "We will not take sides in your war," Director Carl Hughes had announced to the galaxy, "but we will help anyone who suffers because of it." And that decision made Earth different. While the 2 alien empires fought over planets and trade routes, human space became a safe place. Hospitals were built on human colonies to treat wounded soldiers from both sides. Refugee camps housed families who lost their homes. Diplomatic meetings happened on Earth stations where neither side could attack. Jake's thoughts were interrupted by Amy's voice. "Captain, I'm getting a priority message from Earth's command." "Put it through," Jake said. Director Hughes appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. The war had aged him, even though Earth wasn't fighting in it. "Captain Morrison, I need you to escort a medical convoy to the Titan station. They're carrying supplies for both Zephyrian and Kethfer wounded." "Understood, sir." "How many ships in the convoy?" 12 medical transports and 2 supply vessels. They're carrying enough medicine to treat thousands of soldiers. Both sides have agreed to let the convoy pass safely, but we want a human escort just to be sure. Jake knew why. Sometimes the alien armies kept their promises about letting medical ships pass. Sometimes they didn't. Human escorts made sure the convoys arrived safely. "We'll take care of it, Director." Hughes smiled for the first time in the conversation. "I know you will, Jake. Your father would be proud of what you're doing out there." Screen went dark. Jake's father had been a captain too, back when Earth first decided to stay neutral. He died in an accident while helping evacuate a space station that was caught between the 2 armies. Jake followed his path, but he hoped to live longer. "Lisa, plot a course for the medical convoy's position," Jake ordered. "Already done, Captain. We can be there in 6 hours." The Defender changed course and sped up. Through the viewing screen, Jake could see other ships in the distance. Some were human vessels like his own, painted white with red crosses to show they were helping people, not fighting. Others were alien ships, moving carefully through human space under safe passage agreements. This was how the war worked in human territory. Everyone followed the rules. No shooting, no attacking, no threats. Ships that broke the rules were escorted out of human space and banned from coming back. It was simple, and it worked. Dr. Helen Carter was working late again in her laboratory on Earth. She stood in front of a large court screen showing designs for new ship engines. Her team had been working on something called Project Phoenix for years, but it was so secret that most people in the government didn't know about it. "Dr. Carter, the power tests are complete," said Dr. Ryan Bell from across the room. He was young and excited about their work. "The new engines can make ships go 3 times faster than anything the aliens have." Helen nodded but didn't smile. She knew that their peaceful work might not stay peaceful forever. "What about the shield tests, Kate?" Dr. Kate Wilson looked up from her computer. She was quiet and careful, the kind of person who checked everything twice. The adaptive shields work perfectly. They can stop any weapon the Zephyrians or Kethfer are using. Good. Keep working on them. I hope we never need any of this, but if we do, I want it to be ready. Helen had been a scientist for 25 years. She loved her work because it helped protect people. But she also knew that the best way to avoid a fight was to be ready for one. Project Phoenix was Earth's insurance policy. Back on the Defender, Jake and his crew had reached the medical convoy. 12 large white ships were waiting for them, along with 2 supply vessels painted with the symbols of both alien empires. "This is Captain Morrison of the UES Defender," Jake announced on the radio. "We're here to escort you to Titan Station." "Thank you, Captain," came the reply from the convoy leader. "We have wounded from the battle at Proxima.
Us.
Both Zephyrian and Kethfer soldiers who need help fast." Jake understood. The battle at Proxima had been bad. 2 large fleets fought for 3 days over a small planet that had valuable minerals. Thousands of soldiers from both sides were hurt or killed. Medical ships didn't care which side the wounded soldiers were from. Pain was pain, and everyone deserved help. The convoy began moving through space toward Titan Station. The Defender close to the medical ships, watching for any problems. Ami monitored all radio channels, listening for any signs of trouble. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I'm picking up some strange readings on long-range sensors. Looks like there might be ships following us." Jake frowned. "How many ships?" "Hard to tell. They're staying far back, but there are at least 6 of them. Maybe more, Amy. Try to contact them. Ask them to identify themselves." Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. "No response, Captain. They're not answering any of our calls." This was not good. Both alien empires had promised to let the medical convoy pass safely. If someone was following them, it meant trouble. "Tony, can you give us more speed without leaving the convoy behind?" "I can try, Captain. But those medical ships are old and slow. They can't go much faster." Jake had to make a decision. The convoy was still 6 hours from Titan Station. The unknown ships were planning to attack. They might do it soon. "Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have possible hostiles following the medical convoy. Request backup if any ships are available." "Message sent, Captain." Jake watched the stars and thought about his job. For 15 years, he had helped refugees and medical ships travel safely through human space. He had never fired his ship's weapons in anger. He hoped today would not be the first time, but as the Defender flew through space with its convoy of wounded soldiers and medical supplies, Jake could not shake the feeling that something was about to change. The war had stayed away from Earth for 43 years, but wars had a way of growing larger than anyone expected. The unknown ships continued to follow them through the darkness of space. The convoy reached Titan Station safely, but Jake Morrison could not forget about the ships that had followed them. For 3 days, he filed reports and tried to find out who those ships belonged to. Nobody had answers. On the 4th day, everything changed. Jake was in his quarters reading when the emergency alarm started screaming. He ran to the bridge where his crew was already working at their stations. "What's happening?" Jake asked as he sat down in his captain's chair. "Priority distress call from New Denver Colony," Amy Foster said, her voice shaking. "Captain, it's bad, really bad." New Denver was a peaceful farming world with over 2 million people. Jake's sister Emma lived there with her husband and 2 young children. They grew food that fed refugee camps across human space. "Put the call through," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and showed a woman's face. She was crying, and there was smoke behind her. "This is New Denver Control. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Zephyrian ships are bombing our cities. They're targeting civilian areas. We need help immediately." Jake's blood went cold. "Are you sure there's Zephyrian ships?" "Positive identification. 3 battle cruisers and 12 smaller ships. They started bombing 20 minutes ago. Our shields are down. The spaceport is destroyed. Thousands of people are dead." Transmission cut to static. "Lisa, set course for New Denver." "Maximum speed," Jake ordered. "Captain, that's 8 hours away even at full speed," Lisa said. "Then we better get moving." Tony, push the engines as hard as they'll go. To Amy, send a distress call to any human ships in the area. Tell them we need all the help we can get. The Defender jumped to hyperspace, racing toward New Denver. Jake tried to call his sister Emma, but got no answer. He tried again and again. But the communication lines to New Denver were dead. Admiral Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching New Denver burn. Planet cities were on fire and escape pods were floating. In space around the smoking remains of the orbital stations, "Admiral, we have confirmed destruction of the main population centers," reported his second-in-command. "Estimated casualties are over 2 million. Vexstar nodded. He felt no joy in this victory, but it was necessary. The Zephyrian Empire was losing the war. It had lost 3 major battles in the past month, and their people were demanding action. The High Command needed to show strength. "What about the human response?" Vexstar asked. "No sign of human military ships yet, sir. Only a few patrol vessels are heading this way, but they won't arrive for hours. Could begin the second phase. Send troops to the surface. Make sure there are no survivors who can tell lies about what happened here." The truth was simple. Zephyrians had decided that Earth's neutrality was helping their enemies. Human hospitals saved Kethver soldiers, who would then return to fight again. Human space gave the Kethver safe places to rest and regroup. Earth claimed to help both sides equally, but the Kethver were winning. So Earth's help was really helping them more. New Denver had been chosen because it was far from Earth's main colonies, but still had millions of humans. The attack would send a clear message: join the Zephyrian Empire, or face the same fate. Vexstar had prepared a speech explaining that New Denver was secretly building weapons for the Kethver. It was a lie, but it would justify the attack. Zephyrian people would believe it because they wanted to believe it. On Earth, Director Carl Hughes was in an emergency meeting with the Earth Council. The 12 most important leaders of humanity sat around a table in the underground command center, watching reports from New Denver. "How many are dead?" asked Council Member Patricia Lane. "We don't know yet," Hughes replied. "The planet's communication systems are destroyed. We're getting some reports from escape pods, but it looks like over 2 million people have been killed. This is a direct attack on human civilians," said Council Member Robert Clark. "The Zephyrians have crossed every line we drew," Hughes nodded. He had spent 15 years keeping Earth out of this war. He had negotiated treaties, made compromises, and found peaceful solutions to dozens of problems. But this was different. This was murder. "What are our options?" asked Councilmember Mary Johnson. "We can protest to the Zephyrian High Command. We can demand they pay for the damage. We can threaten to stop helping their wounded soldiers," Hughes said. But even as he spoke, he knew these options were not enough. "Or we can activate Project Phoenix," said a quiet voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look at Dr. Helen Carter. She rarely spoke in council meetings, but when she did, people listened. "Dr. Carter, Project Phoenix is a last resort," Hughes said. "We built those weapons to defend Earth, not to fight in someone else's war." "Director, this is no longer someone else's war," Helen replied. "They made it our war when they murdered 2 million of our people. The Zephyrians think we're weak because we choose peace. They need to learn that choosing peace is not the same as being unable to fight." The room was quiet for a long moment. Every person in the room knew about Project Phoenix. For 20 years, Earth's best scientists had been building weapons and ships that could defend human space if the war ever came to them. The project was so secret that even most government officials didn't know the details. "If we activate Phoenix, there's no going back," Hughes said. "We will be declaring war on the Zephyrian Empire. They declared war on us when they bombed New Denver," Helen said. "We can either fight back or wait for them to attack more of our worlds." Hughes looked around the table at the other council members. He saw anger in their faces and fear, but also determination. These were people who had spent decades trying to keep humanity safe through diplomacy, but diplomacy had failed. All in favor of activating Project Phoenix? 12 hands went up. The vote was unanimous. Jake Morrison arrived at New Denver 8 hours after the attack began. What he saw made him sick to his stomach. The planet that had once been green and beautiful was now covered in smoke and fire. 3 of the major cities were completely destroyed. The orbital stations were twisted metal floating in space. "Amy, are you picking up any survivors?" Jake asked. "Some escape pods, Captain." "Maybe 50,000 people made it off the planet. But the Zephyrian ships are still here. They're hunting down the escape pods." Jake watched in horror as Zephyrian fighters chased down small escape pods filled with families. The fighters fired on the defenseless pods, destroying them one by one. "Captain, we have to do something," Lisa said. Jake looked at his small patrol ship. The Defender had light weapons and shields, but it was not built for combat. The Zephyrian ships could destroy it easily, but he could not just watch them murder innocent people. "All hands, this is the captain. We're going to rescue as many people as we can. Tony, divert all power to the shields. Amy, start broadcasting on all frequencies. Tell those escape pods to head for our ship." The Defender flew toward the nearest group of escape pods. Jake watched two Zephyrian fighters turn toward his ship. "Incoming missiles," Lisa reported. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. The Defender dodged the first wave of missiles, but more Zephyrian ships were coming. Jake managed to rescue 3 escape pods before the enemy ships forced him to retreat. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, he saw more escape pods being destroyed. Among the survivors was a family of 4. A man, a woman, and 2 young children. Out they were crying and covered in ash from the burning cities below. "My name is Captain Morrison," Jake told them. "You're safe." "Now." The woman looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "They killed everyone. My neighbors, my friends, my family. Why did they do this to us? We never hurt anyone." Jake had no answer. But as he looked at the survivors, he made a promise to himself. The Zephyrians would pay for what they had done. In his quarters later, Jake tried once more to contact his sister Emma. There was still no answer. He knew she was probably dead, along with her husband and children. The thought filled him with rage unlike anything he had ever felt. On Earth, Dr. Helen Carter was working through the night to prepare Project Phoenix. In secret facilities across the planet, new ships were being activated and weapons were being loaded. The sleeping giant was beginning to wake up, and in space above New Denver, Admiral Vexstar prepared his report to the Zephyrian High Command. He would tell them that the attack was a complete success, that the humans had been taught a lesson about the cost of neutrality, but he had made a terrible mistake. He had assumed that humans were weak because they chose peace. He was about to learn that the most dangerous enemy is the one who fights only when they have no other choice. 3 days after the attack on New Denver, Jake Morrison received orders that changed his life forever. He was to report to Earth immediately for reassignment. The message came directly from Director Hughes himself. Jake had never been to the Phoenix base before. Most people in Earth's military did not even know it existed. The base was hidden deep underground in the Rocky Mountains, behind layers of security that kept out everyone except the most trusted personnel, Dr. Helen. Carter met Jake at the entrance. She looked tired but determined, like someone who had been working without sleep for days. "Captain Morrison, thank you for coming," she said. "I know this is confusing, but everything will make sense soon." They walked through long corridors filled with busy people. Scientists, engineers, and military officers hurried past carrying data, tablets, and equipment. Jake had never seen so many people working with such focused energy. "Doctor, what is this place?" Jake asked. "This is where we've been preparing for the day we hoped would never come," Helen replied. "For 20 years, we've been building ships and weapons in secret. Not to attack anyone, but to defend ourselves if diplomacy failed." They entered a huge underground hangar. Jake stopped walking and stared in amazement. Dozens of ships filled the space, but they were unlike anything he had ever seen. These ships were sleek and powerful, with weapon systems that looked far more advanced than anything the aliens used. "Welcome to Project Phoenix, Captain," Helen said. "Earth's real military force." In the center of the hangar sat the largest ship Jake had ever seen. It was twice the size of the biggest Deferian battleship, with armor that seemed to absorb light and weapons arrays that covered its entire hull. "That's the UES Retribution," Helen explained. "She's going to be your new ship." "My ship?" Jake could not believe what he was hearing. Doctor, I'm just a patrol captain. I escort refugees and medical convoys. I don't know how to command a warship. You know how to protect people, Helen said. That's what we need right now. Someone who understands what we're fighting for. Director Hughes appeared from behind one of the ships. He looked different than Jake remembered. The tired diplomat was gone, replaced by someone with cold determination in his eyes. Jake, I'm promoting you too, Admiral, Hughes said. You'll command the First Strike Fleet, 12 ships including the Retribution. Jake felt overwhelmed. Sir, I don't understand. Why me? Because you were there, Hughes replied. You saw what the Zephyrians did to New Denver. You rescued those families. You understand that this isn't about politics or territory anymore. This is about survival. Hughes led Jake to the Retribution. The ship's bridge was amazing, filled with control systems that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. The center was a captain's chair connected to what looked like a neural interface. This is the command link, Helen explained. It connects your mind directly to the ship's computer. You can think, and the ship responds. Your reaction time becomes as fast as light itself. Jake touched the neural interface carefully. How is this possible? We've had 40 years to study alien technology and improve on it, Helen said. Ivory. Refugee ship that came to us every piece of alien equipment we could examine. Every wounded soldier we treated, we learned from all of it. The aliens taught us their weaknesses without knowing it. Dr. Ryan Bell appeared beside them, excited to explain the ship's capabilities. Admiral, the Retribution can go 3 times faster than any Zephyrian ship. Her shields can stop any weapon. They have. And her quantum torpedoes can punch through their armor like it's paper. Jake walked around the bridge, trying to understand what he was seeing. How many ships like this do we have? The First Strike Fleet has 12 vessels, Hughes replied. The Retribution, the Vengeance, the Justice, the Reckoning, and 8 others. Each one is more powerful than anything the aliens have ever built. What about crews? Going to operate all these ships? We've been training people in secret for years, Helen said. Pilots, engineers, gunners, communications officers, all volunteers who knew that someday Earth might need to defend itself. Jake met some of his new officers over the next few hours. Captain Steve Parker would command the Vengeance. He was a former patrol captain like Jake, someone who had spent years protecting refugee convoys. Captain Linda Hayes commanded the Justice. She had been rescuing survivors from battle zones for 15 years. Captain Frank Mitchell led the Reckoning. He had lost his family in a Kethfer raid 5 years earlier and joined Project Phoenix to make sure it never happened again. We all have the same story, Steve told Jake. We tried to stay out of the war, but the war came to us anyway. Now we're going to end it. The neural interface training took 2 days. Jake learned to connect his mind to the Retribution systems. At first it felt strange and uncomfortable, like having someone else's thoughts in his head. But gradually, he began to understand the ship as if it were part of his own body. The interface doesn't just make you faster, Helen explained during one training session. It makes you smarter. The ship's computer can process millions of battle scenarios in seconds. Combined with human intuition and creativity, it creates something neither humans nor aliens have ever seen before. Jake practiced flying the Retribution through simulated battles. The ship moved like a living thing, responding to his thoughts before he even finished thinking them. When he wanted to turn left, the ship was already turning. When he needed more power to the shields, the power was already there. This is incredible, Jake said after completing a training exercise. But there's something I don't understand. If we've had this technology for 20 years, why didn't we use it to stop the war earlier? Because we hoped we wouldn't need to, Hughes replied. Our neutrality saved millions of lives. Refugee camps, medical stations, peace negotiations. All of that happened because Earth was a safe place. If we had shown our military strength earlier, both sides would have tried to force us to join them. And now they've made the choice for us. Zephyrians have declared war on Earth by attacking our civilians. We have to respond. On the 4th day, Jake stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the ship prepared for its first mission. His crew was ready, his weapons were charged, and his neural interface was active. Through the ship's sensors, he could feel the 11 other vessels of the First Strike Fleet around him. "All ships report ready, Admiral," came the voice of Captain Parker from the Vengeance. Jake looked at the tactical display showing Zephyrian fleet positions. Intelligence reports indicated that Admiral Vexstar, commander who ordered the attack on New Denver, was currently in the Kepler system with a large battle group. "Lisa, are you ready?" Jake asked his navigator, who had volunteered to stay. "With him on his new ship, course plotted and ready, Admiral," Lisa replied from her new station. Tony Rivera had also joined Jake's crew as chief engineer. "All systems green, Admiral. The Retribution is ready for anything." Amy Foster sat at the communications station, monitoring Zephyrian radio channels. "Admiral, I'm picking up Zephyrian communications from Kepler's system. Sounds like they're attacking a Kethver mining colony." Jake made his decision. "All ships. This is Admiral Morrison. We're going to Kepler's system. Our mission is to show the Zephyrians that attacking Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made." The First Strike Fleet jumped to hyperspace. First time in 43 years human warships were going into battle. But these were not the small patrol vessels that had escorted refugee convoys. These were weapons of war built by the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. In the Kepler system, Admiral Vexstar was enjoying an easy victory. His 47 ships were systematically destroying the Kethver mining facilities while the 12 defending Kethver vessels tried desperately to fight back. "Admiral, we're detecting hyperspace signatures," reported his sensor officer. "More Kethver reinforcements?" Vexstar asked. "No, sir. The signatures are different. Never seen anything like them." 12 ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. They were clearly human vessels, but they looked nothing like the small patrol boats the Zephyrians were used to seeing. These ships were huge, powerful, and moving with impossible speed and precision. "This is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Forces," came a transmission that reached every ship in the system. "To all Zephyrian vessels, you attacked our civilians. Without provocation. You murdered over 2 million innocent people. Earth is no longer neutral. We are now at war." Vexstar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "While human ships against 47 of ours? They must be insane." "Admiral, should we demand their surrender?" asked his communications officer. "No," Vexstar replied. "Destroy them."
Show?
Then what happens when weak races try to fight the Zephyrian Empire? The human ships spread out in perfect formation, moving faster than any Zephyrian vessel could match. Vexstar watched in growing alarm as his sensors failed to lock onto the human ships properly. "Why can't we target them?" he demanded. "Their ships seem to be using some kind of adaptive technology, Admiral. Our weapon systems can't get a clear lock." Jake Morrison sat in his neural interface, feeling the battle develop around him through the Retribution's sensors. He could sense every Zephyrian ship, track every weapon, predict every move they would make. News of the battle at Kepler system spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. Within hours, every alien government knew that humanity had entered the war with weapons and ships that no one had ever seen before. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, reading reports from across human space. The neural interface made it easy to process huge amounts of information quickly. His mind was connected to intelligence networks, spy satellites, and communication systems throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, we're getting surrender requests from 12 Zephyrian colonies," Amy Foster reported from her communications station. "They're asking for protection from their own government." Jake was not surprised. The Zephyrian Empire ruled through fear, and their colonies had always been unhappy. Now that Earth had proven it could destroy Zephyrian fleets, many worlds wanted to switch sides. "What about the Kethver response?" Jake asked. "Ambassador Dekmer sent a formal message," Amy replied. "The Kethver hegemony wants to meet with Director Hughes immediately. They're offering a full military alliance." Lisa Park looked up from her navigation station. "Admiral, we're also getting reports of Zephyrian fleet movements. Looks like they're pulling back from 3 different sectors." Jake nodded. The enemy was scared, and they had good reason to be. The First Strike Fleet had destroyed 47 Zephyrian ships without taking any damage. That kind of victory was impossible using normal technology. Dr. Helen Carter's voice came through the communication system from Earth. Admiral Morrison, this is Phoenix Base. We have new orders for you. Go ahead, Doctor. The Zephyrian Empire is evacuating the Proxima sector. Intelligence says they're abandoning 4-star systems and pulling back to their core worlds. We want you to liberate those systems before they can destroy the infrastructure. Jake studied the tactical map that appeared on his main screen. Proxima sector had been under Zephyrian control for 15 years. Millions of people lived there as slaves, forced to mine valuable minerals for the Zephyrian war machine. What kind of resistance should we expect? Jake asked. Minimal, Helen replied. Most of their military ships are gone. They're leaving behind only garrison forces and some automated defense systems. Understood. We'll begin liberation operations immediately. Jake turned to his crew. All hands prepare for combat operations. We're going to free 4-star systems. From Zephyrian control, Captain Steve Parker's voice came from the Vengeance. Admiral, my ship is ready. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you attack Earth. The first strike fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for the Proxima sector. Jake felt the familiar sensation of the neural interface connecting his mind to the ship's systems. Through the Retribution's sensors, he could feel the 11 other ships around him, all moving in perfect coordination. The first system they reached was Proxima Alpha, a mining world with 3 million enslaved workers. The Zephyrian garrison consisted of 2 patrol ships and an orbital defense station. All ships spread out and surround the planet, Jake ordered. Let's make this quick and clean. The human ships moved into position around Proxima Alpha. The Zephyrian defenders tried to fight back, but their weapons could not even scratch the adaptive shields of the human vessels. Within 10 minutes, both patrol ships were destroyed and the defense station was in pieces. This is Admiral Morrison to all people on Proxima Alpha. Jake broadcast to the planet. You're free. The Zephyrian occupation is over. Human medical and supply ships are on their way to help you. The response from the planet was immediate. Millions of voices cheered over the communication channels. People who had been slaves for 15 years were suddenly free. Captain Linda Hayes contacted Jake from the Justice. Admiral, I'm picking up a large convoy of Zephyrian ships leaving the second system. Looks like they're trying to evacuate with as much stolen property as they can carry. Intercept them, Jake ordered. Make sure they don't take anything that belongs to the people they enslaved. The Justice and 2 other ships jumped to hyperspace, chasing the fleeing Zephyrian convoy. Jake continued with the rest of the fleet to liberate the remaining systems. Each victory was easier than the last. The Zephyrian forces were demoralized and outnumbered. Many of them surrendered without fighting. Others tried to run, but were caught by the faster human ships. But the real surprise came when they reached the 4th system, Proxima Delta. Jake expected to find another mining world with enslaved workers. Instead, he found something that made him angry beyond words. Admiral, you need to see this, Tony Rivera said from his engineering station. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. It looks like some kind of weapons facility. Jake used the ship's advanced sensors to scan Proxima Delta. What he found made his blood boil. The planet was covered with weapons factories, all of them built using slave labor. Millions of people had died building the very weapons that the Zephyrians used to attack other worlds. Amy, open a channel to the planet, Jake ordered. This is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Forces. To all Zephyrian personnel on Proxima Delta, you have 1 hour to evacuate. After that, we're going to destroy every weapons factory on your planet. The response came quickly. Admiral, this is Governor Kelter. These facilities are protected. Under the Galactic War Convention, you cannot destroy civilian infrastructure. Jake's anger flared. Governor, there is nothing civilian about weapons factories built with slave labor. You have 59 minutes. The evacuation began immediately. Zephyrian personnel rushed to their ships and fled the planet as fast as they could. Jake watched them go, making sure that no human slaves were taken with them. When the hour was up, the first strike fleet opened fire on the weapons factories. The quantum torpedoes turned the military installations into smoking craters. While carefully avoiding the areas where slaves lived and worked, Admiral, we're getting a transmission. From Earth, Amy reported. Director Hughes appeared on the main screen. He looked pleased, but also concerned. Jake, excellent work in the Proxima sector, but we have a new problem. What kind of problem, sir? The HFY are getting nervous. They're afraid that Earth is becoming too powerful. Some of their leaders think we might turn on them next. Jake understood the concern. The First Strike Fleet had proven that human military technology was far superior to anything either alien empire possessed. If Earth wanted to conquer the galaxy, no one could stop them. What do you want me to do? Jake asked. Ambassador Vikmar is meeting with our diplomats right now. We want assurances that Earth will not use its military power to build an empire. We need to show them that we're only interested in ending this war, not starting a new one. Jake thought about this problem. The HFY had been Earth's unofficial allies, but they were also afraid of human power. If they turned against Earth, the war would become much more complicated. Sir, what if we offered to share some of our defensive technology with them? Not the weapons, but the medical advances and shield systems. Show them that we want to help, not conquer. Hughes smiled. That's a good idea, Jake. I'll discuss it with the Council. Over the next week, the First Strike Fleet continued liberating worlds from Zephyrian control. Each victory brought more planets into Earth's sphere of influence. Former slaves became free citizens. Weapons factories were destroyed, replaced with farms and hospitals. But the most important change was happening in the Zephyrian Empire itself. Admiral Vexstar, the commander who had ordered the attack on New Denver, was arrested by his own government. The Zephyrian High Command blamed him for starting a war with Earth that they could not win. Admiral, we're getting reports of civil war breaking out in the Zephyrian core systems, Amy reported. It looks like different factions are fighting over who should lead the Empire. Jake was not surprised. The Zephyrian Empire had held together through military strength and fear. Now that their military was being destroyed by human forces, the Empire was falling apart. Captain Frank Mitchell contacted Jake from the Reckoning. Admiral, I'm detecting Zephyrian fleet movements near their home system. Looks like they're gathering every ship they have for one final battle. Jake studied the tactical reports. Zephyrians were pulling ships from across their empire, creating a massive fleet of over 300 vessels. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. How many ships are they gathering? Jake asked. Sensor readings suggest 350 ships, including 12 dreadnoughts, Frank replied. They're betting everything on one final offensive. Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. The First Strike Fleet had only 12 ships, even though each one was more powerful than anything the aliens had. 350 enemy ships would be a real test of human technology and tactics. All ships, set course for Earth, Jake ordered. We're going home to prepare for the biggest battle of this war. As the First Strike Fleet jumped to hyperspace, Jake thought about the path that had brought them here. 3 weeks ago, he had been a simple patrol captain, escorting refugee convoys. Now he commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The fate of billions of people depended on the decisions he would make in the coming battle. The final battle came sooner than anyone expected. Admiral Jake Morrison was still 2 days away from Earth when his sensors detected the massive Zephyrian fleet moving toward human space. 350 ships, including the largest dreadnoughts ever built, were heading straight for Earth's core colonies. Admiral, they're not waiting for us to reach them, Captain Steve Parker reported from the Vengeance. They're going straight for Earth. Jake felt the neural interface connecting his mind to the Retribution's tactical systems. The enemy fleet was enormous, but they were making a mistake. They thought that by threatening Earth directly, they could force humanity to surrender. All ships change course. We're going to intercept them at the Centauri system, Jake ordered. We can't let them reach Earth's populated worlds. The First Strike Fleet jumped to hyperspace, racing to reach the Centauri system before the Zephyrian Armada. Jake used the time to contact Dr. Helen Carter on Earth. Admiral, we've been tracking the Zephyrian fleet, Helen said when her face appeared on the communication screen. They have overwhelming numbers, but we have one more surprise for them. What kind of surprise, Doctor? We've been building automated defense platforms in secret. Each one has the firepower of 3 human ships. There are 50 platforms waiting for you at Centauri, Jake smiled. Even with their advanced ships, 12 vessels against 350 would be a difficult fight. But with 50 defense platforms helping them, the odds became much better. There's something else, Helen continued. The Kethver have agreed to help. Ambassador Deckmer is sending a fleet of 200 ships to support you. We can trust them? Jake asked. They're more afraid of the Zephyrians winning than they are of us becoming too powerful. If the Zephyrian Empire survives this battle, the Kethver know they'll be destroyed next. The first strike fleet arrived. At Centauri just hours before the Zephyrian Armada, Jake was amazed to see the defense platforms that Dr. Carter had built. They looked like small space stations, but they bristled with weapons and moved with the same grace as human ships. Admiral, this is Captain Beth Miller commanding the defense platforms, came a voice from the lead platform. We're ready to show. These aliens. What happens when they threaten Earth? The Kethver fleet arrived shortly after, led by Admiral Decamore himself. The alien ships were older and less advanced than human vessels, but there were many of them, and their crews were experienced fighters. Admiral Morrison, it is an honor to fight beside you, Decamore said over the communication channel. Kethver people will not forget Earth's help during this war. Jake looked at the tactical display showing all the ships gathered at Centauri. 12 human warships, 50 defense platforms, and 200 Kethver vessels against 350 Zephyrian ships. The numbers were closer now, but the real advantage was human technology. All ships spread out in battle formation. Jake ordered, remember, we're not just fighting for victory, we're fighting to end this war forever. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud, filling the space around Centauri with massive warships. Admiral Vextar had escaped from prison during the Civil War on the Zephyrian homeworld and taken command of this final assault. Human ships, this is Admiral Vextar, came the enemy transmission. Surrender now, and we will spare your worlds. Continue to resist, and we will destroy every human colony in the galaxy. Jake's response was simple. Admiral Vextar, you started this war by murdering innocent people. Today, we finish it. The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. Zephyrian ships launched thousands of missiles while the human ships in defense platforms returned fire with quantum torpedoes. The space around Centauri lit up with explosions and energy beams. Jake felt the neural interface connecting him to not just his own ship, but to the entire human fleet. Through the advanced communication systems, all 12 human captains could coordinate their movements as if they were one mind controlling multiple bodies. The human ships moved through the battle like dancers, avoiding enemy fire while delivering precise attacks. The defense platforms provided covering fire, their weapons cutting through Zephyrian armor with devastating effect. The Kethver ships fought bravely, drawing enemy attention away from the more valuable human vessels. But the Zephyrians had learned. From their earlier defeats, instead of fighting ship to ship, they concentrated their fire on single targets, trying to overwhelm human shields with massive coordinated attacks. Captain Parker is in trouble, Tony Rivera reported from his engineering station. The Vengeance is taking heavy fire from 6 Zephyrian dreadnoughts. Jake felt Steve Parker's ship through the neural network. The Vengeance was fast and well-armored, but even human technology had limits. 6 dreadnoughts firing together could destroy any single ship. All ships protect the Vengeance, Jake ordered. Lisa, take us into the middle of those dreadnoughts. The Retribution accelerated toward the enemy formation, moving faster than the Zephyrian ships could track. Jake used the neural interface to target all 6 dreadnoughts simultaneously, firing quantum torpedoes with perfect precision. 5 of the enemy ships exploded immediately. The 6th tried to retreat, but Captain Linda Hayes and the Justice finished it off with a barrage of energy beams. Thanks for the help, Admiral Steve Parker said over the communication channel. The Vengeance is damaged, but still fighting. The battle continued for 3 hours. Slowly, the superior human technology began to show its effect. Zephyrian ships were destroyed faster than they could destroy human vessels. The defense platforms proved nearly indestructible, absorbing massive damage while continuing to fire. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and realized that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not just technologically superior, they were better tacticians, better pilots, and more determined fighters. All ships retreat to hyperspace, Vexstar ordered. But Jake Morrison was not going to let the enemy escape to attack again later. All ships, pursue. Don't let any of them get away. The human ships chased the fleeing Zephyrians across 3 star systems. The enemy had started with 350 ships, but only 40 survived to reach the safety of their home system. The Zephyrian Empire's military power was broken forever. When the pursuit ended, Jake found himself face to face with Admiral Vexstar's flagship. The enemy ship was damaged and powerless, floating in space with no weapons or shields. Admiral Vexstar, this is Admiral Morrison. Prepare to be boarded. Jake led the boarding party himself, wearing combat armor and carrying weapons he hoped he would not need to use. When the airlock opened, he found Vexstar waiting for him. No longer the proud commander who had ordered the attack on New Denver. I surrender, Vexstar said, removing his weapon and placing it on the floor. The Zephyrian Empire is defeated. Jake looked at the alien who had started this war by killing over 2 million innocent people. He felt anger, but also sadness. So much death and destruction could have been avoided if the Zephyrians had respected Earth's neutrality. Admiral Vexstar, you're under arrest for war crimes, Jake said. You'll be tried by a galactic court for the murder of innocent civilians. Well, 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in his dress uniform in the Great Assembly Hall on Earth. Representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered to sign the Terran Accords, a peace treaty that would reshape the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had collapsed completely after their military defeat. Most of their worlds had declared independence and asked to join the new Galactic Council under Earth's protection. The few remaining Zephyrian leaders had agreed to pay compensation for the worlds they had destroyed and the people they had enslaved. The Kethver hegemony had also agreed to the new arrangement. Ambassador Thikmer signed the treaty on behalf of his people, accepting Earth as the primary peacekeeping force in the galaxy. The Kethver are grateful for Earth's leadership, Thikmer said during the ceremony. Your people have shown that strength and wisdom can exist together. Director Carl Hughes, now Secretary General of the Galactic Council, stood to give the final speech of the ceremony. 6 months ago, Earth was a neutral world, trying to stay out of someone else's war, Hughes said. Today, we are the guardians of galactic peace. This is not a responsibility we wanted, but it is one we will fulfill. Jake sat in the audience, wearing the uniform of Fleet Admiral. His sister Emma was gone, along with millions of other innocent people, but their deaths had not been meaningless. The war was over, and it would never happen again. Dr. Helen Carter sat beside him, no longer working on weapons, but on new technologies to heal worlds damaged by war. Her Project Phoenix had saved not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. What happens now? Helen asked as the ceremony ended. Now, we make sure this never happens again, Jake replied. We keep the peace, protect the innocent, and remember what happens when good people do nothing. Outside the assembly hall, children from many different worlds played together in the gardens. Human children, Kethver children, and even some young Zephyrians, whose parents had chosen peace over war. They laughed and ran together, not caring about the differences between their species.